A racist woman walked into a small-town diner and tore a black waitress's apron clean off her body, threads snapping, gasps filling the air, humiliation echoing through every witness. She thought she'd won, thought she could destroy a nobody and walk away untouched. But she had no idea the waitress was married to a millionaire who owned not just that diner, but the buildings where her company operated, the venues where her social circle gathered, and had her husband's personal cell number. When he arrived in a tailored suit, he didn't shout, didn't threaten. He handed her a bill, $1,500 for breakfast, then added damages, then made one quiet phone call that shattered her entire world. This isn't just about revenge. It's about what happens when arrogance meets consequence. Stay with me, because the ending will leave you speechless. Drop a comment. Have you ever witnessed karma this precise? The coffee smelled like forgiveness. Arielle Brooks wiped down the counter with practiced rhythm, steam curling past her wrists like silk. Sunlight poured through the diner's front window, gilding the vinyl booths and chrome edges in amber. Morning, sweetheart. Old man Fletcher slid onto his usual stool, grinning. You're here early again. She smiled. Warm. Real. Somebody's got to keep you out of trouble, Mr. Fletcher. Laughter rippled through the regulars. Faces she'd memorized. Names she carried like prayers. This was Maple Creek. Small. Safe. Hers. But across the room, near the jukebox nobody played anymore. A woman in pearls sat alone. Watching. Her eyes didn't blink. Didn't soften. They cataloged Arielle the way you'd study an insect before crushing it. Arielle felt it. The weight of that stare. Cold. Calculated. She turned back to the espresso machine, fingers steady even as her pulse wasn't. Don't react. Just work. The woman's lips curled, not a smile. Something sharper. Refill Han. Arielle called to a trucker 2 booths down, voice bright as morning bells. He nodded, grateful. She moved like water. Graceful. Unbothered. But the woman in pearls tilted her head. Amused. Like she'd already written the ending to a story Arielle hadn't started yet. Excuse me. The voice cut through the diner like a blade wrapped in honey. Arielle turned. The woman's manicured finger tapped the table. Slow. Deliberate. I've been waiting. Of course, ma'am. I'll be right with. No. The word landed heavy. You'll come now. The diner went quiet. Fletcher's fork stopped midair. The trucker's eyes flicked up. Arielle's smile didn't falter, but something behind her ribcage tightened like a fist. She crossed the floor. Professional. Polite. Perfect. The woman didn't look up. Just tapped that table again. And from somewhere deep in her throat, soft, distant, venomous, came a laugh. Low. Contemptuous. Like she knew exactly what was about to break. What would you do if someone looked at you like that? Drop a comment if you've ever felt that stare. Arielle set the coffee pot down, muscle memory guiding her hands while her mind drifted somewhere else. Somewhere with glass towers and conference rooms. Corner offices overlooking Atlanta's skyline. 3 years ago, she'd been someone different then. Sharper suit. Faster pace. Strategic consulting. The kind where one email could shift a company's entire trajectory. Arielle Brooks, corporate strategist. The woman who never missed a deadline. Never flinched under pressure. Until the phone call. Sweetie, I fell. They're saying surgery, 6 months recovery, maybe more. Her grandmother's voice had cracked like old porcelain. Arielle had handed in her resignation that afternoon. No hesitation. No regret. Family wasn't negotiable. Hey, Ari. Jenny, the other waitress, nudged her gently while passing with a tray. You good? Always. Arielle's smile returned, automatic as breathing. But Jenny's eyes lingered. She knew. Everyone at Willow knew bits and pieces. The whispers followed Arielle like friendly ghosts. Used to work in the city. Gave it all up for her grandma. Real smart girl. Too smart for this place. Fletcher leaned over his eggs, voice low enough only Arielle could hear. You making big sacrifices, kid. Your grandma knows that, right? Arielle's throat tightened. She forced the smile wider. Brighter. She's worth it, Mr. Fletcher. His weathered hand patted hers. Once. Gentle. She turned away before the sting in her eyes could betray her. Sacrifice wasn't supposed to feel like this, like swallowing glass every morning, pretending the uniform fit just fine. Pretending she didn't wake up sometimes forgetting where she was, reaching for a briefcase that no longer existed. But pride was a quiet thing, and Arielle Brooks wore hers like armor beneath the apron strings. Across the diner, The woman in pearls watched all of it. Watched Ariel smile through the ache. Watched her serve with grace that didn't belong in a place like this. And the woman's eyes narrowed. Because nothing enraged certain people more than dignity they couldn't buy. Ariel turned to refill Fletcher's cup. She never saw the storm gathering behind her. But it was already here. The door chimed. Victoria Langford entered like she owned the oxygen. Pearls clicked against her collarbone with each step. 3 strands. Perfectly graduated, the kind that cost more than most people's cars. Her heels struck the linoleum in sharp, deliberate beats. Platform Louboutins. Red soles flashing like warning signs. She paused just inside the threshold, surveying. Her nose wrinkled at the smell of bacon grease and coffee. Her eyes traced the cracked vinyl booths, the faded Coca-Cola sign, the laminate countertops that had seen better decades. This place was beneath her, and she wanted everyone to know it. Table for one, she announced to no one in particular, voice carrying like she expected applause. Jenny grabbed a menu. Right this way, ma'am. Victoria didn't follow immediately. She stood there, letting the waitress wait, scrolling through her phone with manicured nails, each one a tiny weapon painted coral pink. Finally, she moved, chose the booth closest to the kitchen, not because it was convenient, because it gave her a clear sight line to everything. Everyone. She slid into the seat, arranged her purse, crocodile leather, probably real, and smoothed her blouse. Silk, cream-colored, the kind that screamed dry clean only in a place where people ate with their hands. Jenny set down the menu. Can I start you with water? Bottled, not tap. Victoria didn't look up. We don't carry bottled, but are filtered. Then I'll make do. The words dripped condescension like honey laced with arsenic. Jenny's jaw tightened. She walked away, and Victoria smiled. Small, private, satisfied. She fed on moments like that. Little humiliations. Tiny assertions of power over people who couldn't push back. Her gaze drifted across the diner. Past Fletcher. Past the trucker. Past the busboy clearing table 4. Then it landed. On Ariel. Victoria's head tilted. Slowly. Like a hawk spotting movement in tall grass. She studied her. The way Ariel moved, too graceful for this place. The way she spoke, too articulate for a waitress. The way she smiled, too genuine to be broken yet. Victoria's eyes glittered. Not with curiosity, with intent. She'd found her target, and she was already cataloging exactly how to destroy it. Ariel approached the booth with water, glass beating condensation in her palm. Here you go, ma'am. She set it down gently. Have you had a chance to? Is this tap? Victoria's eyes didn't leave her phone. It's filtered, ma'am. Fresh. Filtered tap is still tap. Victoria pushed the glass 2 inches to the left. Dismissive. But I suppose that's the best you people can manage here. The air shifted. You people. 2 words. Harmless on paper. Lethal in her tone. Ariel's smile held, but something flickered behind her eyes. Quick. Almost invisible. I'll bring you a menu while you decide. Her voice stayed level. Professional. I've already decided. Victoria finally looked up. Her gaze traveled slowly, starting at Ariel's scuffed work shoes, crawling upward past the apron, stopping just short of eye contact. I'll have the seasonal omelet, but I need it made properly. Do you understand what properly means? Ariel's fingers tightened against her order pad. Of course. Any allergies, or just competence? Victoria's smile was surgical. That shouldn't be too difficult. Should it? Across the diner, Fletcher's fork froze midair. The trucker stopped chewing. Jenny stood by the coffee station, knuckles wide around the pot handle. Someone, a younger guy in the corner booth, reached slowly for his phone, thumb hovering over the camera app, then stopped. Thought better of it. Put it back down. Because intervening meant becoming a target. And Victoria looked like someone who collected targets. Ariel wrote down the order, each letter pressed firm into the paper. I'll have that right out. She turned, walked toward the kitchen, shoulders straight, head high, but her hands trembled when she clipped the ticket to the line. You okay? The cook asked, eyes concerned. Fine. The word came out too fast. She wasn't. Behind her, Victoria sipped her water, the tap water she'd complained about, and smiled into the glass. The first cut was always shallow, just deep enough to see if they'd bleed, just deep enough to decide where to strike next. And Ariel had bled. Only a drop. But Victoria had tasted it. The omelet arrived 12 minutes later. Perfectly cooked. Plated with care. Victoria stared at it like Ariel had served her roadkill. "We'll see," she murmured, and the diner held its breath. Victoria picked up her fork, set it down, picked it up again, never touched the food. Ariel watched from behind the counter, refilling salt shakers, trying not to stare, trying not to give her the satisfaction. "Excuse me." Victoria's voice cut through the breakfast murmur. Ariel turned. "Yes, ma'am. This won't work." Victoria gestured vaguely at the omelet. "I've changed my mind. I can have the kitchen." "No. I want something else entirely." Her smile sharpened. "Your best steak. Medium rare. With the garlic butter. And the seasonal vegetables. The good ones." Ariel blinked. "The ribeye is our dinner menu, ma'am. It's only 9:30. Do you have it or not?" "We do, but then I'd like it. Unless that's too complicated." The trucker muttered something under his breath. Fletcher shook his head slowly, sadly. Ariel pulled out her pad. "No, ma'am. I'll put that in. And another water. This one tastes like metal." It was the same water, same glass. But Ariel took it anyway. In the kitchen, Carlos the line cook stared at the ticket like it had personally insulted him. "A ribeye? At breakfast?" He looked through the window at Victoria. "She's serious?" "Just make it," Ariel said quietly. "She's playing with you." "I know. You want me to talk to?" "No." Ariel's voice firmed. "Just the steak. Please." Carlos muttered in Spanish. Something about entitled people and karma. But he fired the grill. 28 minutes later, Ariel brought out a perfectly seared ribeye. Butter melting into the char, vegetables glistening. Plated like art. Victoria glanced at it. Didn't pick up her knife. Just stared. "Something wrong?" Ariel asked. "It looks small." "It's a 12-ounce cut, ma'am. Our standard. I'll decide if it's acceptable." Victoria waved her away like smoke. "Leave it." Ariel walked back to the counter. 10 minutes passed. 15. The steak sat untouched. Getting cold. Victoria scrolled her phone, sipped water, examined her nails. Never once lifted her fork. The kitchen staff watched through the service window. Jenny clenched her fists. Fletcher's jaw worked like he was chewing nails. And Ariel stood at the register, breathing slow and deep, trying to remember why she'd chosen grace over rage. Trying to remember her grandmother's voice. "Baby, some people test you just to see if you'll break." Victoria finally looked up, caught Ariel's eye, and smiled. Not at the food. At the game. Victoria's hand shot up like she was hailing a cab in Manhattan. "Manager." "Now." Ariel crossed the floor, pulse steady through sheer force of will. "Is there a problem with your meal, ma'am?" "Don't insult me with that question." Victoria's voice rose just enough for nearby tables to hear. "You know exactly what the problem is. If you could tell me specifically." "The problem is incompetence." Victoria leaned back, arms crossed. "I asked for a proper meal. I received this." She gestured at the untouched steak like it was evidence in a trial. Ariel kept her hands loose at her sides. "Breathe. Smile. Survive. I'm happy to have the kitchen adjust anything." "The kitchen isn't the issue." Victoria's eyes locked onto hers. "You are." The word hung in the air like a slap. "Ma'am, our protocol is to address concerns directly with your server first, then." "Protocol?" Victoria's laugh was glass-breaking. "You're lecturing me about protocol? Do you even know who I am?" "I'm not lecturing, ma'am. I'm trying to. Get your manager. Unless you're too incompetent to understand simple English." Fletcher stood up from his stool. Halfway. Jenny moved closer, protective instinct overriding caution. Ariel raised one hand. "Gentle. Stop. She could handle this." She had to. "Our manager is off-site this morning, but I can call." "Of course he is." Victoria's smile turned poisonous. "Leaving you people to run things. No wonder this place is falling apart. You people." Again. Louder this time. Deliberate. The diner went silent. Forks stopped mid-bite. Conversations died. Even the cook stopped moving in the kitchen. Everyone heard it. Everyone felt it. The trucker's jaw clenched. The young guy in the corner finally pulled out his phone. This time he didn't put it back. Ariel's face remained perfectly calm. But her fingers, hidden behind her apron, curled into fists so tight her nails drew crescents in her palms. "Ma'am, I understand you're frustrated. You understand nothing." Victoria stood now, purse in hand. Nothing at all. She took one step closer. Close enough that Ariel could smell her perfume. Expensive. Suffocating. Close enough to see the cruelty glittering in her eyes like diamonds. "Let me educate you." Victoria whispered, loud enough for the room to hear, and her hand reached forward, toward Ariel's apron. Victoria stood. The chair scraped against linoleum like a scream. Every head turned. She moved toward Ariel with purpose, heels clicking like a countdown. This, she pointed at the untouched steak, is unacceptable. Ariel stepped forward, hands visible, calm. Ma'am, I'm happy to. Where is your manager? Victoria's voice climbed. Performed. Who even let you touch my food? Ma'am, if you'll just let me. Let you what? Victoria closed the distance. 3 feet. 2. Ruin something else? The diner was a held breath. Fletcher half rose from his stool. Jenny moved toward them. But everything happened too fast. Victoria's hand shot out, not toward the plate, toward Ariel. Her fingers closed around the apron fabric at Ariel's chest. And she yanked. Hard. The cotton tore with a sound like something breaking inside a body. Threads snapped. Strings whipped loose. The apron ripped clean away, half of it still clutched in Victoria's fist, half hanging limp against Ariel's uniform. Gasps shattered the silence. Oh my God, did she just? A fork clattered onto a plate. Ariel stumbled back, hands flying to her chest, grabbing at the torn fabric. Not because she was exposed, because the humiliation was raw, public, deliberate. Her breath came sharp and shallow, eyes wide, stunned. Victoria held the torn apron piece like a trophy. Maybe this will teach you, she hissed, to respect your betters. The room exploded into motion. Fletcher stood fully now, fists clenched. The trucker pushed his plate away, face dark with fury. Jenny rushed forward. You can't just. I can do whatever I want. Victoria dropped the fabric like trash. And there's nothing any of you can do about it. Ariel stood frozen, hands gripping the torn strings, chest rising and falling. Her face, still composed, still professional, began to crack. Not with tears, with something colder, harder, something that had been holding back a lifetime of moments just like this. Her fingers curled around the ruined apron, tighter, tighter, until her knuckles went white. And behind her eyes, something fundamental shifted. She looked up, met Victoria's gaze, and for the first time all morning, Victoria's smile faltered, just for a second, because she'd just crossed a line she didn't know existed. And there was no going back. Silence. The kind that rings in your ears like a bell that won't stop. No one moved. No one spoke. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. Ariel stood there, torn apron strings dangling from her trembling fingers, chest rising and falling in shallow waves. Her face, composed for so long, professional through every insult, began to fracture. Not with tears, with something far more dangerous. Rage. Controlled. Contained. Coiled tight as a spring. Fletcher's coffee cup sat halfway to his lips, forgotten. His eyes burned with the kind of anger that comes from watching injustice and being too old, too far away to stop it. Jenny's hand covered her mouth, tears already forming. The trucker's jaw clenched so hard his teeth should have cracked. The young guy in the corner finally lifted his phone. This time he didn't put it down. Carlos appeared in the kitchen window, spatula gripped like a weapon. Ari. She raised one hand. Stop. Her voice came out quiet, barely a whisper, but everyone heard it. It's okay. It wasn't. Nothing about this was okay. Victoria adjusted her purse, smugness radiating off her like heat. I think we're done here. Ariel looked at her, really looked, and something in her gaze made Victoria take half a step back. Because humiliation does two things to people. It breaks them, or it forges them into something unbreakable. Ariel breathed in. Slow. Deep. Let the oxygen fill her lungs, cool the fire in her chest just enough to think clearly. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory. Baby, never let them see you break. But never forget what they did, either. She straightened her shoulders, released the torn fabric, let it fall. And when she looked up again, her face was different. Still calm, still professional. But underneath, something had switched. A door closing, a decision made. She turned away from Victoria, walked slowly toward the back hallway, past the restrooms, past the storage closet, into the small employee break room with the flickering fluorescent light and the bulletin board covered in health code reminders. She pulled her phone from her pocket, stared at it for 3 seconds, then scrolled to a name she rarely called during work hours. Her thumb hovered over the screen. Pressed down. The phone rang once. Twice. A voice answered. Deep, warm, concerned. Baby, you okay? Ariel closed her eyes. Can you come to Willow? Her voice was steady, too steady, the kind of steady that comes right before a storm. In the background, through the break room door, the diner's bell chimed. Someone else had just walked in. Victoria settled back into her booth. Victorious. She pulled out a compact mirror, checked her lipstick, smoothed a perfectly placed strand of hair. Around her, the diner remained frozen in shock. But slowly, reluctantly, life resumed. Forks scraped plates. Conversations restarted in hushed, angry whispers. Fletcher stared at his eggs like they'd personally betrayed him. Ginny wiped down tables with enough force to strip varnish. And in the kitchen, Carlos stood at the grill, knuckles white against the steel edge. He looked through the service window, directly at Victoria. She felt the stare, glanced up, smiled, like she'd won a game no one else knew they were playing. Carlos moved, untied his apron, handed it to the prep cook, and walked out into the dining room. Slowly, deliberately, stopped 3 feet from Victoria's table. She looked up, eyebrow arched. Can I help you? You don't know who she is. His voice was low, controlled. Do you? Victoria laughed. Light, airy, poison wrapped in sugar. I know exactly what she is. A waitress who can't do her job. Not what? Who? Carlos leaned forward slightly. You don't even know who she's married to. The smile on Victoria's face widened. Genuine amusement now. Married. She glanced toward the back hallway where Ariel had disappeared. Let me guess. Some mechanic? A warehouse worker. She waved her hand dismissively. Probably a busboy. Carlos's jaw tightened. You should leave. Excuse me. Before you make this worse for yourself. Victoria leaned back, arms crossed, thoroughly entertained now. Worse? Sweetheart, I'm a real estate executive. I have lawyers on speed dial and more money than everyone in this sad little diner combined. She gestured around like she was presenting evidence. There is nothing a waitress and her nobody husband can do to me. Carlos stared at her, not with anger anymore, with pity. The kind you give someone standing on train tracks who can't hear the whistle yet. You'll see, he said quietly, then turned and walked back to the kitchen. Victoria watched him go, still smiling, still utterly convinced of her invincibility. Around her, other patrons exchanged glances, knowing looks. The trucker pulled out his phone. Fletcher shook his head slowly, almost sadly. Ginny glanced toward the front window, waiting, because Maple Creek was a small town. And in small towns, everyone knew everyone, including who drove the black Mercedes sedan that just pulled into the parking lot. The engine cut. A car door opened, closed. Footsteps approached the diner entrance. Steady, unhurried, inevitable. The bell above the door chimed, and the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. The break room walls pressed close. Ariel stood with her back against the water-stained bulletin board, phone clutched in both hands like a lifeline. She could still hear the diner through the thin walls. Muffled voices, clinking silverware, the hiss of the coffee maker. Normal sounds. In an anything-but-normal moment. The phone rang. Once. Twice. Ariel. Marcus's voice came through warm, concerned. Baby, what's wrong? She opened her mouth. Closed it. Tried again. Can you come to Willow? Silence on the other end. Not empty silence. The kind full of rapid calculations and shifting priorities. Are you hurt? His tone changed. Sharper now. Focused. No. Then what happened? She looked down at the torn apron strings still clutched in her left hand. Evidence. Humiliation made tangible. Her voice cracked. Just slightly. Just enough. Someone put their hands on me. The silence that followed was different. Colder. Dangerous. I'm leaving now. No questions. No hesitation. Are you safe right this second? Yes. Stay in the back. Don't engage. I'll be there in 12 minutes. Marcus. 12 minutes, Ari. The line went dead. Ariel lowered the phone slowly, stared at the screen until it went dark. Then she lifted her head and looked at herself in the small, cracked mirror above the hand-washing sink. Her reflection stared back. Uniform wrinkled, hair slightly mussed, eyes red-rimmed but dry. And underneath it all, something new. Not anger. Not fear. Certainty. She straightened her collar, smoothed her hair, took one long, measured breath. Outside, she heard Carlos's voice raised slightly. Protective. Heard Victoria's mocking laugh in response. Heard the scrape of chairs, nervous murmurs, phones being lifted. Then, the bell above the front door chimed. Different this time. Clearer. Sharper. Like the sound itself knew something had shifted. The background music from the old jukebox. Patsy Cline crooning about falling to pieces, cut off mid-verse. Silence rushed in to fill the space. Heavy. Expectant. Ariel's phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. I'm here. 2 words. But they carried the weight of an army. She slipped the phone into her pocket, smoothed her apron one final time, and walked toward the door. Outside, in the diner proper, she heard it. A voice she knew better than her own heartbeat. Calm. Low. Lethal in its gentleness. Where is my wife? Ariel pushed through the door and stepped into a very different room than the one she'd left. Marcus Dalton Brooks didn't walk into the diner. He arrived, 6'2" of contained purpose in a charcoal Tom Ford suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Italian leather shoes that made no sound despite their weight. A watch that caught the morning light. Understated, elegant, worth a down payment. But it wasn't what he wore. It was how he carried it. Like power was something he'd been born with and had long since stopped announcing. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Every conversation died. Fletcher straightened in his seat. Jenny's hand froze mid-wipe. The trucker's eyes widened in recognition. Even Carlos stepped out from the kitchen, dish towel over his shoulder, watching. Marcus's gaze swept the room. Methodical. Patient. Missing nothing. It landed on Victoria for exactly 2 seconds. Cataloged her. Dismissed her. Moved on. Then he saw Ariel, standing near the break room doorway, torn apron strings hanging loose, shoulders straight despite everything. His jaw tightened. Just once. A muscle flickering beneath the skin like suppressed thunder. He crossed the distance in 4 strides. Stopped in front of her. Reached out and gently, so gently, touched the torn fabric. Who touched you? His voice was quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you lean in to hear. The kind that carries weight no shout could match. Ariel's breath hitched. Marcus. Who? She didn't have to answer. Victoria stood up from her booth, finally sensing the shift in atmosphere. Finally realizing every eye in the diner had turned toward her with something between pity and anticipation. I disciplined your little staff member. Her voice had lost some of its venom, but arrogance still held. Perhaps you should teach her how to serve people properly. The words landed like stones in still water. Ripples of shock spread outward. Someone gasped. Fletcher muttered, "Oh Lord." She didn't. The trucker whispered to no one. She messed up. Marcus turned. Slowly. Faced Victoria fully for the first time. His expression didn't change. No rage. No shouting. No theatrics. Just stillness. The kind that comes before earthquakes. He looked at her the way you'd look at a problem already solved. I'm sorry, he said, voice silk over steel. Could you repeat that? Victoria's smile wavered. Just at the edges. Just enough to show the first hairline crack in her armor. Because she'd just realized something. This wasn't a busboy. This wasn't someone she could dismiss. This was someone who didn't need to raise his voice. Because when you have real power, you never have to announce it. Marcus didn't blink. Didn't move. Just waited. Victoria's mouth opened. Closed. Her rehearsed confidence stumbled over itself. I said. She straightened, forcing the arrogance back into her spine. I said someone needs to teach your employee proper service. My employee. Marcus repeated the words slowly, tasting them. Interesting. He turned to the manager, Gerald, a thin man in his 60s who'd been frozen behind the register like a deer in headlights. Gerald. Marcus's voice stayed gentle, almost conversational. How long has my wife worked here? Gerald's throat bobbed. 3 months, Mr. Brooks. And in those 3 months, have there been complaints about her service? No, sir. None. She's one of our best. Marcus nodded. Once. Precise. Then he looked at Ariel. The hardness in his expression softened. Just for her. Just for a heartbeat. Are you okay? She nodded. He didn't believe her. But he didn't push. Instead, he turned back to the room. All of it. Every booth. Every table. Every witness. I have a simple question. His hands slid into his pockets. Casual. Relaxed. Terrifying in its calm. Did anyone here see what happened? Silence. Then, Fletcher's hand went up. Slow. Deliberate. I did. The trucker nodded. Me too. Jenny stepped forward. She grabbed her. Ripped her apron right off her. The young guy in the corner lifted his phone. I got video. Marcus's eyebrow raised. Barely. Did you? Victoria's face drained half a shade. She laughed. Hi. Thin. Defensive. That's taken completely out of context. She was incompetent. I was simply what? Marcus's voice dropped lower. Softer. Putting your hands on someone who didn't belong to you. The air thickened. Victoria's purse strap slipped from her shoulder. She caught it. Fumbled slightly. I don't know who you think you are. You don't. Marcus agreed. Almost kindly. That's the problem. He gestured to Gerald. Would you mind pulling up her check? Gerald blinked. Her check. Yes. Everything she ordered. Itemized. Sir, I don't think. Please. One word. Polite. Absolute. Gerald's fingers trembled as he punched keys on the register. Victoria scoffed. But her smile, the one that had been so sharp, so certain all morning, cracked. Just at the corners. Just enough for everyone to see. And Marcus smiled back. Not with warmth. With patience. The kind predators have when they've already won. Victoria's laugh came out wrong. Too loud. Too quick. Desperate edges showing through the polish. This is absurd. She adjusted her purse. Straightened her pearls. I came in for a simple meal and was met with incompetence. Any reasonable person would have. Assaulted the server? Marcus's tone stayed conversational. I didn't assault anyone. Victoria's voice climbed. I removed a soiled uniform. It's a health code issue, really. I was doing management a favor. The lie hung in the air like smoke. No one bought it. Not Fletcher, who'd watched the whole thing. Not Jenny, whose fists clenched tighter. Not the trucker, whose jaw worked silently. Victoria felt their stares. Felt the walls closing in. So she did what people like her always do when cornered. She pivoted to magnanimity. Look. She raised both hands, palms out. Reasonable. Rational. I'm willing to let this go. Just bring me the check. I'll pay for my meal, and we can all move on with our lives. She smiled. Like she was offering mercy. Like she was the bigger person. Marcus tilted his head slightly. Generous. I think so. Just the meal? Of course. Victoria pulled out her wallet. Designer. Monogrammed. How much could it possibly be? Gerald stared at the register screen. His face went pale. Victoria's fingers paused on her credit card. What? The total is. Gerald swallowed hard. It's. Marcus held up one hand. Gentle. Patient. Before we get to that. He looked at Victoria directly. I should probably introduce myself. Victoria's smile tightened. I'm sure you're very important to these people. But. Marcus Dalton Brooks. He said it like he was commenting on the weather. I own the Dalton Hotel Group. 14 properties across the South, including the conference center where, he paused. I believe your firm held its annual gala last month. Victoria's credit card slipped, clattered onto the table. Her face, already pale, went chalk white. You also, Marcus continued, voice still gentle, are standing in my establishment. The words landed like hammer blows. You're what? I own Willow Diner. Marcus's smile was surgical. Bought it 6 years ago. Keep it running because my wife's grandmother loves this place. Behind the counter, Fletcher whispered to the trucker. She's not leaving like this. And for the first time all morning, Victoria looked afraid. Victoria's world tilted. Just slightly. Just enough to make her grab the edge of the table for balance. You own this place? Marcus nodded. Once. She forced a laugh. Brittle. Breaking. Well, that's fine. I'll still pay for my meal and... The Dalton Group also owns the Riverside Commons development. Marcus's tone stayed pleasant. Informative. Where your firm has its main office. 3rd floor, northeast corner, if I remember correctly. Victoria's breath caught. We're also majority stakeholders in the Magnolia Center downtown. He continued like he was reading a grocery list. Where the real estate board holds its monthly meetings. You attended one last Tuesday. Her eyes widened. And the Hartwell Property Management Group. We acquired that in January. They manage about 40% of the commercial leases in Maple Creek. Each word was a door opening. Each revelation showed her exactly how small her world actually was. And how much of it he controlled. Fletcher leaned toward Jenny. Did you know all that? Jenny shook her head, eyes wide. The trucker pulled out his phone. Started Googling. His eyebrows climbed higher with each result. Holy. Marcus never raised his voice. Never changed expression. Just stood there, hands in his pockets, delivering facts like a professor giving a lecture. Your CEO, Richard Langford, is it? Your husband? Marcus's head tilted slightly. We golf occasionally. Pinehurst Country Club. Tuesdays. Victoria's knees buckled. She sat down hard. The booth cushion wheezed beneath her. He's never mentioned. Her voice came out strangled. Small. Why would he? Marcus smiled. Actually smiled. I'm sure you don't discuss all your business acquaintances at home. But the implication hung heavy. I know your husband. Your husband knows me. And he's about to know what you did. Victoria's hands trembled. She pressed them flat against the table. Tried to hide it. Failed. Around the diner, phones lifted. Not to record anymore. To search. To verify. And one by one, faces changed. Shock. All. Vindication. Because Marcus Dalton Brooks wasn't just rich. He was connected. He was powerful. And Victoria Langford had just humiliated his wife in his establishment. In front of witnesses. With cameras rolling. The fear in her eyes was no longer first. It was complete. Marcus gestured to Gerald. The check, please. Gerald's finger hovered over the print button. He looked at Marcus. Then at Victoria. Then back at Marcus. Sir, are you sure? Quite sure. The register word. Paper scrolled out slowly, each line appearing like a verdict being read. Gerald tore it off, held it like it might explode, walked it over to Victoria's table, set it down face up, and stepped back. Quickly, Victoria glanced at it. Her eyes scanned the top line, then stopped, went back, scanned again. Her mouth opened. No sound came out. There must be. She picked up the receipt with shaking hands. This can't be right. Marcus leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Is there an error? It says, she blinked rapidly. $1,487.50. Marcus recited it from memory. Plus tax. The diner went silent. Even the kitchen noises stopped. Fletcher's coffee cup froze halfway to his lips. For an omelet and a steak? Victoria's voice climbed 3 octaves. No. Marcus shook his head. For the executive premier tasting menu. Victoria stared at him. The what? The menu Gerald gave you when you sat down. Gold embossed corners. You ordered from page 3. Her eyes dropped to the check. Itemized. Executive seasonal omelet. $145. Premier reserve ribeye, 12 ounces, $385. Heritage vegetable medley, $95. Artisan water service, $45. VIP kitchen priority fee, $280. Exclusive dining experience surcharge, $537.50. The numbers blurred. She shook her head. This is fraud. You can't charge. It's itemized clearly on the menu. Page 1. Bottom left corner. Marcus's voice stayed level. All VIP services are disclosed. You agreed when you ordered. I didn't agree to anything. You ordered from the VIP menu. Gerald's voice was barely a whisper. The gold one. I assumed. You assumed what? Victoria's face flushed red. Panic replacing arrogance. That I wanted to pay $1,500 for breakfast? Marcus straightened. No. His smile returned. Colder this time. We assumed you could afford it. Victoria's credit card sat on the table. Mocking her. She grabbed it. Hand trembling so hard she nearly dropped it. I'm not paying this. That's unfortunate. Marcus nodded to Gerald. Add the damages. Victoria froze. The what? You destroyed property. Marcus's eyes locked onto hers. My wife's uniform. And the trap snapped shut. Gerald disappeared into the back office. Returned 30 seconds later, carrying a second sheet of paper. Printed. Dated. Signed at the bottom. He placed it next to the meal receipt. Victoria's eyes dropped. Property damage invoice. Willow Diner, Dalton Hospitality Group. Her vision blurred. She blinked hard. The words came into focus. Custom embroidered service apron, $340. Emergency replacement uniform, $180. Loss of employee productivity, 30 minutes, $95. Disruption of business operations, $500. Emotional distress settlement offer, $2,500. Total, $3,615. Victoria's hands shook so hard the paper rattled. You can't, her voice cracked. This is insane. An apron doesn't cost $300. Custom embroidered with the establishment logo. Marcus gestured toward Ariel. Her name stitched on the pocket. Takes 2 weeks to order. $340 is cost, not markup. I'm not paying for. The disruption fee is standard. He continued like she hadn't spoken. You created a scene. Customers left. Tables went unserved. Loss of revenue is quantifiable. Victoria stood abruptly, chair screeching back. And the emotional distress? That's extortion. Marcus's expression didn't change. It's an offer. Settlement. Keeps this from becoming a civil suit. He paused. Or would you prefer your husband's legal team handle it? I'm sure Richard would love to hear about your morning. A bead of sweat rolled down Victoria's temple. Slow. Visible. Her makeup couldn't hide it. You're bluffing. Am I? Marcus pulled out his phone. Scrolled casually. Would you like me to call him? We're supposed to tee off Thursday. I could move our conversation up. Victoria's breath came faster. Shallow. Her chest rose and fell beneath the silk blouse that suddenly looked too tight. Around the diner, people watched in absolute silence. This wasn't just revenge. This was surgery. Precise. Calculated. Devastating. Marcus slid both invoices toward her. Total comes to $5,102.50. His voice was silk. Plus tax, of course. Victoria stared at the numbers. At her credit card. At the ruins of her morning. And for the first time in her entitled, insulated life, she realized she'd picked the wrong person. In the wrong place. On the worst possible day. Her hand reached for the card. Trembling. Defeated. Humiliated. Exactly the way she'd intended for Ariel. 3 days later, Victoria sat in her home office. Cream walls. Marble desk. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking manicured gardens that cost more to maintain than most people's salaries. Everything perfect. Everything controlled. Except the envelope in her hands. Heavy cardstock. Embossed return address. Keller and Associates Legal Group. Atlanta, Georgia. Her letter opener shook as she slid it under the flap. Inside, 3 pages. Heavyweight paper. Official letterhead. She unfolded them slowly. Notice of intent to file civil litigation. Plaintiff, Ariel Brooks. Defendant, Victoria Marie Langford. Causes of action. 1. Assault and battery. 2. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. 3. Defamation. 4. Violation of civil rights, race-based harassment. The words swam. She blinked hard. Kept reading. The plaintiff maintains video evidence, witness testimony, and documented medical consultation for emotional trauma resulting from the defendant's actions on the morning of. Her stomach dropped. Plaintiff seeks compensatory damages in the amount of $150,000, punitive damages to be determined at trial, plus all legal fees and court costs. The papers slipped from her fingers, scattered across the pristine desk. She grabbed her phone, dialed Richard's office. Voicemail. She tried a cell. Straight to voicemail. Again. And again. He wasn't answering. Hadn't answered since she'd told him, sobbing, humiliated, about the diner. About the bill she'd been forced to pay. About Marcus Dalton Brooks. Richard had gone silent. Then said 3 words. Fix it yourself. And hung up. Her hands trembled. She picked up the letter again. Turned to page 2. A list of depositions already scheduled. Witnesses already contacted. Gerald. Fletcher. Jenny. Carlos. The trucker whose name she never learned. The young man with the video. All of them prepared to testify. Against her. Page 3 showed the lawyer's signature. Thomas Keller, ESQ. Below it, a handwritten note. Mrs. Langford, Mr. Brooks has authorized me to withdraw this filing if you issue a formal public apology and complete 100 hours of community service at an organization serving marginalized communities. You have 72 hours to respond. Otherwise, we proceed to court. Victoria's vision blurred. Not with tears. With rage. With shame. With the crushing realization that this wasn't over. It was just beginning. She sat alone in her perfect office, surrounded by wealth that couldn't protect her, status that couldn't save her. And for the first time, she understood. Some battles you can't buy your way out of. Some people don't forgive. They calculate. Victoria returned to Willow Diner on a Friday afternoon. Not because she wanted to. Because the letter had been clear. Payment of damages must be rendered in person at the location of incident. Marcus's lawyer didn't miss details. She pushed through the door at 2:47 p.m. The lunch rush had ended. Only a handful of customers remained. But they all looked up, recognized her immediately. Whispers erupted like brush fire. That's her. The one who. Oh my God. She came back. Victoria's heels clicked against the floor. Each step an execution march. Gerald stood behind the register. Waiting. She reached the counter. pulled the cashier's check from her purse. $5,102.50. Plus tax. Her hand shook as she placed it down. Gerald picked it up, examined it, nodded. Thank you, ma'am. 2 words. Polite. Professional. Cold as winter. Behind her, the door opened. Victoria turned. Froze. Margaret Chin Williams walked in, president of the Maple Creek Business Association. Someone Victoria had brunched with last month. Their eyes met. Margaret's face shifted. Recognition. Then something worse. Pity. She looked away. Deliberately. Walked to a booth on the opposite side of the diner. Didn't acknowledge Victoria at all. Victoria's throat tightened. The door opened again. Diane Ruthers. Country club member. Garden Society chair. She saw Victoria. Her expression closed like a door slamming. She turned to the person beside her, loud enough for Victoria to hear. I heard she assaulted a server. Can you imagine? Victoria's face burned. She tried to speak. Nothing came out. One by one, her social circle, people who'd smiled at her across ballrooms and charity galas, looked through her like she was glass. Invisible. Irrelevant. Discarded. Her carefully built world of connections and status crumbled. Not with explosions. With silence. She grabbed her purse. Turned toward the door. Stopped. Because Ariel stood there. Apron clean. Freshly pressed. New embroidery gleaming. She didn't say anything. Didn't have to. Her presence was the final word. Victoria's composure, held together with designer labels and desperation, shattered. She walked past Ariel. Head down. Shoulders curved. Pearls clicking weakly against her collarbone. Pushed through the door into blinding afternoon sun. Got into her car. And sat there. Face pale as bone. Hands gripping the steering wheel. Dignity gone. Power stripped. Alone. Exactly the way she'd tried to make Ariel feel. Karma doesn't shout. It just waits. And when it strikes, it's always perfectly timed. That evening, after the last customer left, Ariel sat at the counter. Quiet. Still. Processing. Marcus entered through the back, carrying something folded carefully in his hands. White tissue paper. Precise creases. He set it down in front of her. What's this? Open it. She unfolded the paper slowly. Inside, her apron. Not the torn one. Not a replacement. The original. Mended. Every ripped seam sewn back together with thread that matched perfectly. Pressed until the creases were sharp as promises. The embroidery, her name in cursive, retouched where it had frayed. Ariel's fingers traced the stitching. Invisible unless you knew where to look. You kept it, she whispered. Of course I kept it. Marcus sat beside her. Some things are worth repairing. Her eyes burned. She held the apron against her chest. Gerald emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. Ariel. He cleared his throat. Uncomfortable with emotion, but pushing through anyway. I should have stepped in sooner. I'm sorry. You don't have to. I do. His voice firmed. You deserve better. From all of us. Behind him, Carlos appeared. Then Jenny. Fletcher stood from his usual stool. He'd stayed after closing, nursing cold coffee, waiting. One by one, they surrounded her. Not with words. With presence. Jenny squeezed her shoulder. Carlos nodded, jaw tight with unspoken loyalty. Fletcher set something on the counter. Cash. $100 bill. For your grandmother, he said gruffly. For her care. Mr. Fletcher, I can't. You can. He pushed it toward her. And you will. Jenny added 2 20s. Carlos, a 50. Gerald slid an envelope across. Staff pulled together. It's not much, but Ariel's hands shook as she opened it. $300. Her breath caught. You don't have to do this. We want to. Jenny's voice was fierce. Protective. Your family. Marcus watched silently. This wasn't his doing. This was community. This was people choosing kindness after witnessing cruelty. Ariel folded the apron carefully, set it beside the money, and for the first time in 3 days, she smiled. Real. Full. Unbroken. Because dignity isn't given. It's recognized. And she'd never lost hers. Not for a second. 2 weeks later, Ariel stood behind the counter, pouring coffee for Fletcher, laughing at one of his terrible jokes. Sunlight streamed through the window. Everything looked the same, but nothing was. The apron she wore, mended, restored, felt different now. Not like a uniform. Like armor she'd chosen to put back on. Marcus sat in the corner booth. Laptop open. Working remotely. He did that sometimes now. Just to be close. Just because he could. Ariel caught his eye. He smiled. Small. Private. Theirs. The door chimed. A woman entered, middle-aged, nervous, clutching a resume. I heard you might be hiring. Her voice trembled slightly. Gerald nodded. Applications online. But I can grab you a paper. I'll help her. Ariel set down the coffee pot. Walked over. Extended her hand. I'm Ariel. What's your name? The woman's shoulders relaxed. Teresa. Nice to meet you, Teresa. Ariel's smile was genuine. Warm. Come sit. Let's talk. Because she remembered what it felt like. To be underestimated. To be judged by what people saw instead of who you were. And she'd made a choice. Not to become bitter, but to become better. Fletcher watched them, then turned to Marcus. Your wife's something special. Marcus didn't look up from his laptop. I know. Outside, Maple Creek moved at its usual pace. Slow. Steady. Unremarkable. But inside Willow Diner, something had shifted. A line had been drawn. A statement made. That dignity wasn't negotiable. That power didn't require volume. That justice, real justice, wasn't about revenge. It was about restoration. And sometimes the quietest response is the most devastating. Marcus closed his laptop. Stood. Walked to the counter. Kissed Ariel's cheek. Heading out. Call if you need me. Always do. He smiled. And left. The bell chimed behind him. Ariel returned to her work. To the regulars who'd become family. To the new applicant who needed a chance. To the life she'd built. Not despite the humiliation. But stronger because of it. Because true power isn't what you do when you're on top. It's what you do when someone tries to tear you down. Do you break? Or do you build something unbreakable? The world will test you. Make sure you're ready when it does. What's your breaking point? Or have you already found your strength? Tell us below.